So for this video, it will be about the London against the King's Indian attack, and you start out with d4 and knight f6, and instead of bishop f4, which seems like the most logical move, knight f3 is a better one, because after bishop f4, I think I already said this before, but after knight h5, you run into some annoying things. And it's not really all about that. Knight f3 can always it can always transpose into other things, because in bishop f4, if they only play the King's Indian or the Grunfeld, they're gonna go with it. But if you play this, they might transpose into the main line, and okay, they still might go here, but I think knight f3 is better than bishop f4. So after g6, bishop f4, bishop g7, and e3. And the whole point of this setup is to go c4, knight c3, and bishop e2. Since the if the bishop goes to d3, it would be going against nothing. I mean, it's just nothing it can attack. This is like a wall. And so here, you could play bishop e2, but I prefer h3 because his last move was to prevent bishop e5 and, well, to develop. And if he played knight h5 right away, bishop e5 would annoy him. And now if you really wanted your bishop, you could just give it, and you would have the open h file with bad pawn structure, or bad king safety, I guess. So back here, that's why you play d6, and h3 can clear a square for your pieces. So yeah, after castling, you can just go bishop e2, and the difference between a normal King's Indian and the London against the King's Indian is that in the London, the whole point of white's opening is to control the e5 square. There's already 3 attackers, and maybe sometimes in the London, maybe knight c4 could happen. Not very often, but maybe. And after castling, he can play b6. And also, a main point of the King's Indian is to play e5 and c5. He can only play e5 here. Now c4, and after bishop e7, you can just centralize your pieces. So knight c3 and knight e4. And here you can take it if you want, and rook c1. And now he could play e5, and after bishop g3. I recommend this move over bishop h2 because going back to h2 isn't really necessary. And it always gives more opportunities for the bishop to go somewhere else, anywhere. And after queen e7, bishop h4, the whole point of bishop g3. It's that it can go somewhere else. And after bishop f6, you could just play knight d2, which is a nice intermediate move. And if black tries to try to trick you, like maybe in another in-between move like this, it fails because this is attacking the queen. It would be better if this was a queen. That would make it messy. But bishop takes h4 is probably the best, and after this exchange, I think it's better for white. You could just go bishop f3, so maybe this, and bishop f3. And now rook d1, you could possibly go for a queenside attack, and it would be a nice position. So back here, there are two more options that I could think of, which is this and this. So I'm gonna go first with the queen e8 line because it's better, because usually in the King's Indian, they're gonna play f5 and e5. So now after c4, e5, you just go take, no, that's wrong. Just takes and bishop h2. Here bishop g3 doesn't work because of knight h5. That's just another tempo wasted. Although it could work. Queen e7, knight c3, and queen c2. Rook c1 and rook c1 and rook d1. h6, knight a4 to go c5, and it's not weak there because you can always defend it with your pawns and with your rooks. Knight h7 and then c5, knight g5, you could just go here. After taking, and this, he wants to go bishop f5. So after rook d2, because you want to double on the queen side, the d file, basically the queen side. After bishop f5, you could just go e4, and if he goes back here, that's fine. You get a free pawn, and if he goes back here, that's also fine because you get a good square like that. And if he goes back here, which looks like a weird move, but it's the engine's top choice, you just go back here. It's all the same. And now if he plays rook e8 instead of queen e8, it's the same point but with another piece. After c4, knight e4, because why not? Oh yeah, now I know why. I just thought of this tactic, I think. Yeah, here you just win a free pawn with knight takes and queen takes. Let me see. Oh, it's alright. Queen takes d8 and bishop takes, and you get your material back. I'll just replay that again, which is basically the whole reason why people don't want to go queen e8. f5 is not a big factor, but e5 is. So after, if he plays e5, d takes, and since there are queens looking at each other on the d file, you can just take, and after taking, you take. It's an intermediate move, and you win a pawn. Maybe two if he's not careful. But it's probably better to develop first and then take more pawns. There's a little tactic. I think I actually might have gotten a bad position from this. It's somewhat like this, but that's why you need to be careful here. Don't open the diagonal. And now after c4, back with what is the best move, which is knight e4. You just go queen c2, f5, and it looks like he has a pretty good post there, and it is, but knight d2 is fine. After e5, takes, and bishop h2, there's no more squares. Knight c5 and b4, and white gets a comfortable queen side. Knight e6, rook d1, and knight e1, because it looks kind of cramped for white, but after queen b3 and knight c2, I think it's fine. For example, after a5, you can just play this and queen b6. You get a pretty, what do you call it? Dangerous, I don't know what I call it. But it's a dangerous diagonal, I guess. So if he plays a few moves, maybe like, I don't know, rook a7, your threat is basically to go here, although it doesn't really work, but it does. Yeah, it does. The queen protects it. And you get a favorable position with the initiative and everything. This should be 1 for white, so don't mess that up. And yeah, I think that's about it. I'll just show you the first line. Well, the main point is to play knight of 3, because I think it's better, and the setup is to play c4 and go for a more aggressive type of position. It might not be too aggressive, but it's like a queen's gambit, like I showed you with d5 and that other setup, not the King's Indian. And another point is that if you try to play the same as usual against the King's Indian, you won't get a good position, because after bishop d3, which is the most natural move, it's not that great. It's always that diagonal. Because, well, if you're not going to go to d3, the pawn is probably better on c4. And there's better development instead of knight d2. And yeah, I think that's about it for today. And yeah. Bye.